Breaking tonight, FBI and ICE have raided a Minneapolis nonprofit after investigators discovered hidden cash walls tied to its leadership.
Today, we announced the dismantling of one of the most sophisticated financial criminal networks ever discovered operating under the guise of humanitarian aid on American soil. Those words came from a federal podium in Minneapolis at 11:47 a.m. on a frozen Tuesday morning. But by then, the damage had already been done. Not to the network, to the city itself, to the trust, to the very idea that charity could still mean something pure. Here are the numbers they did not want you to hear. $250 million. Hidden inside the walls of a nonprofit headquarters. Literally embedded in drywall, sealed behind plaster, stacked in airtight containers within the building's foundation. 17 years of operation. 43 shell companies spanning 4 continents. Over 900 falsified grant applications. And one name at the center of it all. A fictional CEO we will call Abdikarim Warsame, a man celebrated as a pillar of the Somali American community, a man who shook hands with senators, a man who received humanitarian awards, a man who, according to federal investigators, was running one of the most elaborate money laundering and human trafficking pipelines ever discovered in the American Midwest. This is not a story about immigration. This is not a story about one community. This is a story about how power hides in plain sight, how evil wears a smile, how the badge of charity can become a weapon. And if you think you know how deep this goes, you do not. Because what federal agents found inside that building was only the beginning. The next part is worse. 4:17 a.m. Minneapolis, Minnesota. The Cedar Riverside neighborhood. January cold so sharp it burns exposed skin in seconds. Steam rises from manhole covers like the city itself is exhaling its last breath before chaos. The streets are empty. Neon signs flicker above halal markets and money transfer shops. Somewhere in the distance, a car alarm wails and then stops. Silence returns. But not for long. 16 black SUVs roll through the intersection without headlights. Behind them, 4 armored tactical vehicles. Behind those, 2 unmarked vans carrying FBI cyber forensics teams. Overhead, a helicopter holds position 3 blocks north, thermal cameras scanning rooftops for movement. This is Operation Frozen Charity. FBI, ICE, DHS, SWAT teams from 3 counties. Over 200 federal agents coordinated across 11 simultaneous breach points throughout the Twin Cities metropolitan area. The primary target is a 4-story building on a quiet street. The sign above the entrance reads, New Horizon Refugee Alliance. Inside, according to 18 months of surveillance, wire intercepts, and confidential informant testimony, is the nerve center of a criminal empire disguised as compassion. At 4:22 a.m., the first flashbang detonates. The front door comes off its hinges. Agents in black pour through the opening like shadows given form. They move fast. They move silent. They have trained for this moment for 11 months. Upstairs, shouts. A woman screaming in Somali. Glass breaking. The thud of bodies hitting the floor. Agents sweep room to room, zip ties ready, weapons raised. They find administrative offices filled with filing cabinets. They find server rooms with blinking lights. They find a locked steel door in the basement that was not on any building plan. When they breach that door, they find the first cash. Stacked floor to ceiling. Bundled in plastic wrap. Organized by denomination. Cash. Millions of dollars in cash. More than any nonprofit should ever possess. More than most banks keep in their vaults. But the real discovery comes an hour later. An agent notices something wrong with the wall in the executive suite. The drywall sounds different when he taps it. Hollow in some places. Dense in others. He radios for the forensics team. What they find inside that wall changes everything. Rows of vacuum-sealed bundles. Cash. Gold bars. Encrypted hard drives. Passports from 9 different countries. And photographs. Hundreds of photographs. Of children. Of young women. Of shipping containers. Of cargo manifests. This is not charity. This is commerce. Human commerce. By 6 a.m., the seizure count has already reached preliminary totals that will take weeks to verify. Over $47 million in cash recovered from this building alone. But the walls have not finished talking yet. Structural engineers will later discover additional hidden compartments throughout the foundation. The final count will exceed $250 million. And buried among the financial records, agents find something else. Encrypted ledgers with code names. Transfer authorizations requiring dual signatures. And one name appearing on every major transaction for the past decade. Abdikarim Warsame, the CEO they called a saint. 11 a.m. FBI Cyber Forensics Laboratory, a secure facility in an undisclosed location outside Minneapolis. The room hums with the sound of cooling systems and keyboard clicks. Analysts sit before walls of monitors, each screen displaying fragments of the encrypted data recovered from New Horizon servers. The air smells of coffee and tension. For 3 hours, cryptographers have been working to break the primary encryption layer. It is military-grade, sophisticated, the kind of protection you do not buy off the shelf, the kind that suggests professional installation by someone who understood exactly what they were hiding. At 11:47 a.m., they break through. What appears on screen makes a senior analyst push back from his desk and whisper a single word that we cannot repeat here. They are looking at a network diagram, a sprawling web of connections spanning 3 continents. Shell companies registered in Delaware, Dubai, and Djibouti. Ghost corporations in Kenya and the Netherlands. Bank accounts in Switzerland, Singapore, and the Cayman Islands. And at the center of it all, a master file with a code name, Operation Mercy Gate. The name is deliberately ironic. What this network moved had nothing to do with mercy. According to the recovered files, New Horizon Refugee Alliance was the American hub of a vast criminal enterprise. On paper, the organization received federal and state grants to assist refugee resettlement. They filed the right forms. They attended the right conferences. They issued the right press releases. But beneath that surface, they operated a parallel system. Grant money was siphoned into shell accounts within days of receipt. Refugee sponsorship paperwork was manipulated to facilitate human trafficking. Young women and children documented as family reunification cases were actually being funneled into exploitation networks across the Midwest. And the cash flow went both directions. Money came in from overseas sources that investigators are still tracing. Hawala networks, remittance fronts, cryptocurrency exchanges. All of it designed to be untraceable. All of it flowing through Minneapolis. And authorizing every major transfer, hidden behind layers of encryption and proxy signatures, was Abdikarim Warsame. But Warsame did not build this alone. The files reveal a network of enablers that reaches into places federal agents did not expect. State legislators who approved emergency grant funding without standard audits. City officials who fast-tracked building permits for New Horizon facilities. County administrators who overlooked complaints and red flags for years. One name appears repeatedly in the correspondence. A fictional state senator we will call Diane Holbrook. According to the encrypted communications, Senator Holbrook received monthly payments routed through a fictional consulting firm called Prairie Development Partners. In exchange, she championed legislation that increased refugee resettlement funding and blocked proposed oversight measures. Her digital signature appears on internal memos discussing which auditors to avoid, which reporters to discredit, which federal inquiries to redirect. This is not corruption. This is architecture. Someone designed this system to be invisible, to be untouchable, to operate in plain sight while everyone looked the other way. The analysts keep digging. What they find next will require a much larger response. The operation has just begun. 5:30 a.m. The following morning. Federal Emergency Operations Center, downtown Minneapolis. The room is cavernous, designed for natural disasters and terrorist threats. Today it serves a different purpose. On the central display, a digital map of Minnesota glows with red markers. 47 locations, each one connected to the New Horizon network, each one scheduled for simultaneous action within the next 90 minutes. The briefing officer addresses the assembled commanders. FBI, ICE, DHS, U.S. Marshals, State Police Liaisons, SWAT team leaders from 6 jurisdictions. Over 800 federal agents are staged across the state, waiting for the order. The mission is designated Operation Prairie Storm. The targets include properties that New Horizon purchased over 17 years. Apartment complexes in Minneapolis and St. Paul that served as transit points for trafficking victims. Warehouse facilities in Bloomington where cash was processed and prepared for overseas transfer. A rural property near Rochester that satellite surveillance identified as a training facility of unknown purpose. Commercial storefronts that served as fronts for Hawala operations. And the private residences of 14 individuals identified as key network facilitators. At 5:47 a.m., the operation begins. In Minneapolis, SWAT teams breach a luxury condominium in the North Loop. Inside, they find Abdikarim Warsame attempting to destroy hard drives with a hammer. He is taken into custody without resistance. His expression, according to agents present, shows no surprise, only resignation. In St. Paul, Agents raid a money transfer business that processed over $12 million in suspicious transactions during the previous year alone. The owner attempts to flee through a back entrance. He is stopped by a K-9 unit. In Bloomington, a warehouse raid yields a discovery that shocks even veteran investigators. A sophisticated counting room, industrial-grade currency sorters, vacuum sealing equipment, and documentation suggesting this facility processed over $30 million in cash during the previous 6 months. In Rochester, the rural property proves more disturbing. Underground bunkers, living quarters for approximately 40 people, evidence of recent occupancy. The facility appears to have been evacuated within the previous 72 hours. Someone was warned. Across the state, the pattern repeats. Property after property, arrest after arrest, cash, documents, electronics, and evidence accumulating faster than processing teams can catalog. By noon, preliminary figures begin to emerge. Over 117 arrests. $63 million in additional cash seized. Documentation linking the network to trafficking operations in 7 other states. And the first hints of international connections that will eventually draw attention from Interpol. But the most significant discoveries come from the digital evidence. Forensic teams working through recovered devices find communication logs that implicate law enforcement officers. Border Patrol agents who provided advance warning of inspection schedules. Local police officers who filed false reports to discredit witnesses. Immigration officials who approved fraudulent documentation in exchange for payment. The network did not simply avoid law enforcement. It infiltrated law enforcement. It purchased protection at every level it could reach. The Midwest has just experienced more criminal network disruption in 12 hours than in the previous 12 years. But investigators know they have only exposed the surface. The roots go deeper. The connections spread further. And somewhere, the people who built this system are already planning their next move. The week that follows brings revelations that redefine the scope of what federal agents thought they were investigating. Analysis of the seized financial records reveals a system of corruption that extends far beyond Minnesota. New Horizon Refugee Alliance was not a standalone operation. It was one node in a continental network. Similar organizations in Ohio, Texas, California, and Georgia appear in the transaction records. Different names, different leadership, but identical patterns. Grant money diverted. Humanitarian programs weaponized. Human lives treated as commodities. The money flowed through a maze of shell companies designed to obscure its origin and destination. Restaurants that never served food. Trucking companies that never moved cargo. Real estate holding firms that existed only as letterheads. Each one serving as a waypoint for funds moving between continents. Investigators trace transfers to accounts in East Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. The network operated remittance corridors that moved millions of dollars weekly without triggering standard financial monitoring systems. But the human cost proves even more staggering. Among the evidence recovered from Warsame's personal devices, agents find a database. Names, photographs, dates, destinations. Over 4,000 individuals documented as having been processed through the network during the previous decade. Most were refugees seeking legitimate resettlement, vulnerable people fleeing conflict and poverty, people who trusted organizations like New Horizon to help them start new lives. Instead, many were diverted into exploitation. Young women channeled into trafficking networks. Children separated from families and placed with handlers who used them for labor or worse. Men promised legitimate employment who found themselves trapped in debt bondage. The database includes transaction records showing payments received for each person processed. Human beings reduced to line items. Prices assigned based on age, gender, and destination. This is not immigration fraud. This is slavery. Modern, sophisticated, hidden behind the language of compassion. And the political protection that enabled it came from people who swore oaths to serve the public. Senator Holbrook is arrested at her home on the 3rd day of the investigation. She says nothing during processing. Her attorney releases a statement denying all allegations. But the evidence recovered from New Horizon servers tells a different story. 14 other public officials face federal charges during the same week. City council members, county administrators, state agency directors. Each one linked to the network through financial records or communication logs. The honest officers who spent years filing reports that went nowhere finally understand why. The system was not broken. The system was captured, redesigned to protect the network while appearing to function normally. One Minneapolis police sergeant, a woman who filed 17 complaints about suspicious activity at New Horizon facilities over a 4-year period, breaks down during her interview with investigators. Every complaint was buried. Every lead was dismissed. Every witness she cultivated was intimidated into silence. She believed the system had failed. Now she understands the system was working exactly as intended. Just not for the people it was supposed to protect. Federal agents begin the process of rebuilding, reviewing every case file, re-examining every dismissed complaint, identifying which officers were compromised and which were simply overwhelmed by a system designed to frustrate their efforts. The badge will be cleaned. But first, they have to understand how dirty it became. The investigation eventually traces the network's connections across 8 states and 4 countries. The scale is difficult to comprehend. Billions of dollars moved over nearly 2 decades. Thousands of lives exploited. Hundreds of officials at various levels either corrupted or neutralized. The network used humanitarian organizations as its primary cover, but it diversified its methods over time. Trucking companies moved cash hidden in cargo shipments. Real estate transactions laundered money through property purchases that inflated values, then resold at losses that concealed transfers. Technology firms provided encrypted communication infrastructure. Even small businesses like restaurants and convenience stores served as cash processing points. The system was designed for resilience. Remove one node and others would continue operating. Arrest one facilitator and replacements were already trained. The network could absorb significant damage without collapsing. But it could not absorb what happened in Minneapolis. The seizure of the central server archive exposed the entire architecture. Names, accounts, methods, connections. Everything the network spent 17 years building was suddenly visible to investigators who knew exactly what they were looking at. Within 3 months, similar operations are launched in 4 other states. Coordinated federal action dismantles affiliated organizations in Columbus, Houston, Los Angeles, and Atlanta. The arrest count eventually exceeds 400 individuals. Financial seizures surpass $600 million. And the human trafficking networks that depended on this infrastructure begin to collapse. Safe houses are raided. Transit routes are disrupted. Victims who spent years trapped in exploitation are finally recovered. The database that documented 4,000 processed individuals becomes a roadmap for rescue operations that continue for months. But the damage already done cannot be undone. Lives lost. Families destroyed. Communities betrayed. The cost measured not in dollars but in human suffering. Here is what this story teaches us. Power does not always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it wears a suit and accepts awards. Sometimes it builds orphanages while counting human beings like inventory. The most dangerous corruption is the kind that looks like compassion. The kind that wraps itself in causes no one dares question. The kind that makes you feel guilty for being suspicious. Abdi Karim Warsame understood this. He built an empire on the assumption that no one would look too closely at someone doing good work. He was nearly right. But here is what else this story teaches us. The system works when people refuse to stop asking questions. That sergeant who filed 17 complaints. Those analysts who spent 18 months building a case. Those agents who breached doors at 4 a.m. in freezing temperatures. They did not give up. They did not accept the silence. And because they did not accept the silence, $250 million in criminal proceeds is now in federal custody. Hundreds of perpetrators face prosecution. Thousands of victims have a chance at real freedom. And a network that operated in the shadows for nearly 2 decades is finally exposed to light. The lesson is not that the system always works. The lesson is that the system can work when enough people refuse to let it fail. If you are still watching, tap like so more people see this story. These are the investigations that need attention. The ones that reveal how power really operates when it thinks no one is watching. Comment expose if you want more stories like this dragged into the light. Comment your city if you want us to investigate what is happening where you live. Subscribe because we are not done. There are more networks, more operations, more people hiding behind badges and mission statements while they exploit the vulnerable. And remember, this story is fictional. A dramatization inspired by real issues. Created to show how these systems work and why vigilance matters. But the problems it describes are real. The methods are real. The human cost is real. The only question is whether we pay attention before the next network finishes building itself in plain sight. Stay aware, stay informed, and never stop asking questions.